When considering whether the Reds should sign Adolis Garcia, you must look at the entire picture because he's not who you think he is.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcasting network in all the land. Thank you very much for helping us make that happen. My name's Stephen Offenbaker. His name is Jeff Carr. We love baseball. We love the Cincinnati Reds. We have been covering this team in podcast form for a combined 14 seasons. We love talking Reds. We love talking baseball. And we especially love talking about those things with you. On today's show, a little bit later, there was a name drop during Derek Johnson's Hot Stove League interview that caught me a little off guard. It's something Jeff had said in passing a little bit earlier in the offseason, but Connor Phillips, potential closer, well, that comes with a bit of an issue for 2026 that you may want to consider before handing him the high leverage situations. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. We're also going to talk about Noelvi Marte because I think Noelvi Marte is due for a breakout season. That guy over there thinks that Noelvi Marte is due for a breakout season, but the projections don't necessarily match up with that for Noelvi Marte in 2026. So we're going to talk about whether or not maybe we're the ones that are just a little too optimistic about what Noelvi can do in 2026. That's coming up here in just a couple minutes. But where we're going to start is with the Reds and their potential pursuit of Garcia, as Jeff alluded to there in the cold open, and the impact he could have on the Cincinnati Reds roster. We've got all of that for you on today's show that's brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets back to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. All right, Jeff, let's kick this off because this is something you really wanted to talk about. You've been pretty good at like spotting these guys that are on the market that you think could be good fits if the Reds would just poke them with that stick and do something. And Garcia, who was released by the Texas Rangers, is another one of those candidates that could fit with Cincinnati.
Yeah, he is a guy that last season put together a pretty solid year, depending on how you look at, the different wars and calculating stuff. And I kind of mentioned yesterday that I've been reading about this, and the way that you split up war is that Baseball Reference does a really good job of saying what happened, and Fangraphs uses war to kind of predict what's going to happen in the future. And Adolis Garcia is a perfect example of it, because if you look at Baseball Reference, Adolis Garcia had a pretty good year, 2.7 wins above replacement. He didn't have the best year at the plate, kind of a little bit of a continuing theme there. But according to Fangraphs, his WAR was 0.7. And so there's a little bit of understanding that you have to have with Adolis Garcia moving forward, because we might be thinking about him as a two-time All-Star that has a Gold Glove on his resume. He almost hit 40 home runs in a year, Steve. That was 2 years ago. The Adolis Garcia of 2024 and 2025 is far different than he was in 2023, because in 2023 he hit 39 home runs and he had an OPS plus of 127. For the last two seasons, he has a combined 44 home runs and he has OPS plus of 98 and 93, i.e. under 100. He's less than a league average hitter. But SpotTrack still has him around $12 to $13 million per year, which would put him higher than Ryan O'Hearn, who I talked about on yesterday's show, and would kind of start to put him in the stratosphere of he's going to be in high demand, so there's going to be a bidding war for him. So understanding Adolis Garcia and where the Reds stand with him is key, because sure, he would improve this outfield, but at what cost, and compared to who else could you get?
In a normal offseason year, in a normal year, Jeff, I would be like, I don't know about this. But this is the year of the 1-year contract. And whether we're talking about Garcia or O'Hearn, I think that benefits teams like Cincinnati. And it's just a matter of how creative is Nick Krall going to get? How much room does he really have in that budget? We hear it between 15 and 25, right? So we've been operating on that 20 number. If it's closer to 25, if that's a more accurate representation of what's going on, Nick Krall could go out and swing a 1-year deal for an outfielder like this. The outfielder gets a prove it option. The Reds are only committed for a season, which seemingly that's what they want. They want to owe nobody anything heading into the CBA negotiations. So
Right.
I can see this working. And you look at a guy like Garcia, and you talk about the baseball reference projections. They actually are projecting him to tick up just a little bit in 2026 from what he did in 2025. They have him projected to slash 230, 291, 422. Now, I don't love the 291 on base percentage, but they project him at 23 home runs without having any idea right now what his home ballpark's going to be. I don't think he has any problem hitting 30 home runs if he gets to play 81 games at Great American Ballpark. So I don't mind this at all. I more than anything, Jeff, I really just need them to go get a guy. And if it's going to be a prove it kind of guy, I need it to be a guy that's hit 30 home runs, 40 home runs in the season. I need it to be a guy that I can realistically look at coming into Great American Ballpark and using that to an advantage. And you would have to think, as much as the Reds go around talking about, oh, it's so hard to sign pitchers because they, our ballpark is just this hitter friendly ballpark and it's problematic. Well, I hope to hell that somebody is at least picking hitters that, hey, you get to come hit at GABP. Do you know what that's going to do for your earning power after this 1-year deal you sign with us? I mean, I hope. I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine Nick Krall can even get that animated, but maybe, just maybe he can, or maybe he's got somebody that talks for him in these negotiations. I don't know. But I don't think this is a terrible idea, Jeff. I mean, these are the kind of guys they've got to take a run at if they're really not going to go and try and get Kyle Schwarber, if they're really not going to go and try and get a multi-year $35 million a year outfielder. These are the kind of players you have to take a swing at.
Well, and you bring up a good point because, I talked about Ryan O'Hearn, and I think like apples to apples, comparing these two, I'd pick Ryan O'Hearn over Adolis Garcia. But understanding one thing, Ryan O'Hearn's coming off of a career year, a year in which he had a better season at the plate than he's ever had before. So he's probably looking for a multi-year deal. Adolis Garcia, on the other hand, is coming off of 2 down years. So he's probably going to be more in that prove it range. And that might be more palatable to the Reds. Again, though, that still drums up his demand. I think that this could be a bidding war even with like teams like Cleveland and stuff like that.
But interestingly enough, if you think about the unique situation that Garcia is in, he just gets DFA'd by the Texas Rangers after, according to Baseball Reference, a 2.7 WAR season. You look at the numbers that he had, you look at what's going on in baseball. This would be Garcia's opportunity for a prove it deal to go into what would probably be his last big league contract, because they'll be coming out of the CBA. The next contract will be negotiated under the new rules. And you would have to imagine at that point, Garcia is 34 years old. That's probably the last free agent contract he's going to go out to get. Would you like to be hitting at Great American Ballpark to prove your prove to get that deal? I could see that happening. That's a selling point.
I can see that happening too, and he's got some nice peripherals when it comes to like quality of contact. His average exit velocity was over 92 miles an hour. That puts him in the top 11% of all hitters from last season. It's just the big question mark is his plate discipline. He swings a lot. He swings
he'll
and
fit
misses
right in
a lot. He strikes out
fit right in. He's already got the
and he doesn't walk.
He's already got the Cincinnati Reds batting philosophy down. He's got it.
He doesn't walk either. This is an interesting thing though, because I do find him an intriguing fit as an all or nothing type of hitter. You're also looking for a guy that you really hope provides lineup protection for Elly De La Cruz. Do we think that Adolis Garcia does that?
You could put him in behind. I wouldn't have any problem with him hitting fourth behind Elly. Because there's look, I know the 39 homer season. I mean, I'm looking at it right now, Jeff. The 39 homer season was a bit of an outlier. I get that. But in all his other years, 31 home runs, 27 home runs, 25 home runs. Last year was his lowest home run production as a full-time player at 19. You put that guy behind Elly, there is home run potential there. Pitchers are going to have to be careful with him, which means that helps Elly De La Cruz a little bit. This is the kind of bat you want to put behind Elly, much more so than, as much as I love Tyler Stevenson in the lineup, I would be more worried about Garcia coming up as a power threat at GABP than Tyler Stevenson in this situation.
And there's he's not just a bat only type of player either. He's a pretty decent outfielder. Like we said, Gold Glove in 2023. Didn't have the best year outs above average wise. It was just one out above average last season, but it's still pretty good compared to the rest of the Reds outfielders and the rest of Major League Baseball. That's still top 72%. And his arm, he has a good arm. So you would be fine putting him in right field. I think I'm okay with this idea. I still think I'd prefer Ryan O'Hearn, although it's a little bit different because Ryan O'Hearn is not a good defensive outfielder. You would probably play him more at first base, and Garcia would play in the outfield. So he would satisfy two of the needs that the Reds have, in that you need to improve the outfield and you need to improve the lineup. Feels like Adolis Garcia does that. So I think I'd be all for it. I just wonder a little bit, could the Reds be that team that wins in this sort of bidding war for a guy that is going to have a lot of suitors? That'll be an interesting thing, but also a little bit of, worrying about the outfield, looking at what the Reds need kind of falls into place when it comes to Noelvi Marte, because it feels like we are penciling him in and it feels like other people are telling us not so fast, my friend. Plenty of game action to get in on over at FanDuel, and I'm looking at the Cincinnati Bearcats as they're headed on the road this weekend, going to be closing out the season against TCU. The line has actually moved. The Bearcats opened as 4.5-point underdogs. They are now 3.5-point underdogs. That's an interesting one to bet on as a cover. I'm not necessarily sure that I love it, but that might be something that you love on over at FanDuel. And if you're a new user and you place $5 on that and you get a win, you get $300 in bonus bets. Those kind of odds you can't find anywhere else. And plus, you can check out all the stuff, whether it's NCAA football, NCAA basketball, the NFL, the NBA, the NHL. It's all on FanDuel, and you can take advantage of so many different lines, whether it's the spread, the money line, the over-under, prop bets galore. FanDuel's got you covered all season long. Make sure you download FanDuel today. Thank you for making Locked On Reds part of your everyday routine. If you're not an everydayer, make sure you hit that subscribe button, become an everydayer, make us your first listen, and thank you for helping make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the country. By the way, coming up Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, we're going to be live. I haven't done a live in a little bit. We're going to be live with you, talking Reds baseball on Black Friday. Get your questions in, get your comments in. Going to be interacting with you.
Are you going to be like in line at some store on a Black Friday deal with like your travel mic? Is that what we're doing?
Online. I don't do the whole in-person thing anymore. Like, who shops in person anymore? They have done the thing of the online shopping and the delivery to your door. They make it so, I don't go out no more.
So that's
unless
not
I'm
happening.
people watch.
Got it.
Unless I'm people watch. Like, I'm going out to people watch. I'm not going out to buy anything. That's for sure. Speaking of people watching, we've been watching a lot of Noelvi Marte this season and really like what we saw. In fact, he provided the #1 memory of the year with the home run robbery. And I think at least penciled himself in as the opening day right fielder with some of the other play that he had. Certainly he's not a flawless fielder when it comes to that position because he just moved there last year. But I think that there's a lot of upside. And as far as he continues to work on it in the offseason and spring training and all this other stuff, you and I see him improving. The folks who don't see him improving is everybody that does projections. And we're not just talking about Fangraphs. Baseball Reference doesn't love him for next year. People are not really signing up for the Noelvi Marte experience like you and I are. And that has me wondering if we're a little bit too high on him.
Even if we're too high on him, these projections, I don't know, man. Like, Baseball Reference has him only playing in 100 games roughly in 2026. Fangraphs has him down a full WAR, one win above replacement from 2025 to 2026. And, Baseball Reference's slash has him going from 263, 300, 448, has all of those going down to 259, 307, 416. And I just don't get it, because everything about Noelvi's game says with full-time playing time, he's going to get better. The defensive metrics are going to get better. He's going to get more at bats. That's going to lead to more of the counting statistics. I think he's going to be playing more than 100 games. I don't think he's going to miss 62 games, dude. how do you project that kind of it? Are they projecting an injury? Is that what they're doing? I don't get it. I saw enough of Noelvi Marte to think with full-time playing time out there in that outfield, he could be valuable to the Reds. And whether it's in right field or left field, wherever they play him, I think he could be. Now, the defense is an issue, but that's not enough to ding him like you're dinging him. I mean, I wonder if they're assuming he's going to get a lot of like defensive replacement because of the way he plays out there, but I think he's going to get better. So I don't like these projections, but every year I yell at the clouds and the projectors at Baseball Reference and Fangraphs because I'm always mad at them, Jeff. I'm always mad at them. And this is just another example of it. I really just don't get how they can think that a player that young with that much talent is going to have a dip with more playing time. I don't see it.
Well, and I also kind of feel like we've seen the dip from him. Like we saw him really struggle through 2024, and the fact that he was able to come back and do what he did in 2025, maybe that's it. Because I know a lot of projection systems draw on past data to look forward, and so they're still considering 2024 and what he did then as a reason to not be bullish about him for 2026. And I mean, if you want to make that part of the argument, I'm not going to say that's wrong, but at the same time, that's 66 worth of games of a sample size, as opposed to the 90 games that we saw him this past year.
And it also doesn't account for how those 66, like he didn't play. He was in baseball banishment, that equated to an OPS plus of 49. That is definitely not who he is. That equated to a slash line of 210, 248, 301. That is definitely not who he is. No. So it almost, I think, is a disservice to him, the player, when you're projecting him like that, if you're using those numbers. But also, I kind of hope just a little bit that he's seeing these projections and he's like, what the heck? I hope it's a little chip on his shoulder. Because, he's paid his pittance. He's served his sentence. He's not that guy anymore. So if it's accounting that 2024 season, he's going to well overshoot these projections.
So then the question is too, like, does this make you think that the Reds need to go out and get another outfielder? Do they not just one? I mean, obviously they need one, but do they need to go get two? And a guy that's like Noelvi Marte insurance, and maybe that is what they're projecting here, that the Reds go get somebody that takes playing time away from him, where maybe he struggles a little bit, and Terry Francona's like, you know what, let's go with the hot hand. Right now, it's not you.
Well, I don't know that getting two more outfielders, I don't know that that's what it means, because just hear me out on this. Let's say they go and get Garcia. We talked about him earlier. Let's say they go get Garcia, but then they also bring back Miguel Andujar. One of those guys DHs, one of those guys plays in left, one of those guys plays in right. TJ Friedel's in center. Spencer Steer's super utilities the infield. Everybody's playing every day. Right. So you can still get those two outfielders and have a tremendous, much needed, oh my God, thank you, upgrade to the lineup, and still get everybody full-time playing time. Because we've done this math, right? We've had whole shows where we've done the math of you can have one guy in your lineup that does just a little bit of scooting, a little bit of moving, and still gets a full-time load of at-bats and playing time. Spencer Steer can be that guy because he can play enough places. So you can bring in that second outfielder and let him get those DH at-bats, and everybody kind of wins, including the Cincinnati Reds. So, yeah, you can go get both those guys.
And Miguel Andujar, in case anybody has forgotten, is a pretty decent defensive left fielder. It's just he dealt with an injury as well. The Reds just really seem to like to have guys who are dealing with injuries in 2025, and they made sure that they didn't take time off and they just kept playing them. I'm not bitter about it. Not at all. But Miguel Andujar can play in the outfield. I know that he only played DH after the Reds acquired him, but that was just due to the Reds being unwilling to let him rest through an injury.
Is there somebody in the Reds clubhouse like, well, can you stand up? Oh, good. You can play. Are you able to ambulate from here to the door? Oh, look at that. You're good to go for at least another 15 games.
Right. And I think that there's people like the Reds training and medical staff deserve some sort of criticism in this, but there's a lot of people that are putting undue criticism, because I don't think a guy from the medical staff is like coming up and being like, rub some dirt on it. sounds like an old-timey coach that they've got on the bench somewhere. It's just like,
Is-
what you
yeah,
do? You
is-
bent your leg backwards? Whatever. Rub some dirt on it. You'll be
The Reds must have made a hire and not announced it. Like Jim Riggleman, playing time coordinator. You know what I mean? Like, he's good. Maybe he can bunt while he's out there. Jesus.
But I think I'm with you. I do think that there is a lot to be expected of Noelvi Marte, and I do not think he is going to miss as much as projection systems seem to have him missing.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jeff. I think that Noelvi's due for a breakout, make a name for himself season, and I hope that this serves as motivation for him to do that. There's another guy who got name dropped on Hot Stove League this week, Jeff. You talked about it on your solo show yesterday, that Connor Phillips is in the mix to be the Cincinnati Reds closer, but there is a bit of an Achilles heel, and I can feel that in my heel right now. That comes along with Connor Phillips in 2026. We're going to talk about that coming up next. If you can't watch us here on YouTube, guess what? We are on probably every single podcasting app that exists. Well, maybe not every single one, but close. And if we're not on one you need us to be on, let Jeff Carr know. He can make it happen. He's a miracle worker like that. You can take us on the road with you in the car, to the office, to the gym. You can listen to Locked On Reds wherever you are. And we appreciate the fact that you're doing so. So click that subscribe button today. All right, Jeff, Connor Phillips, closer. You floated this, and I laughed at you a little bit. But, you got your once right, which is usually your record once a year. You got it squeezed in. We're not quite to December yet, and you got it done, because Connor Phillips' name was dropped by Derek Johnson as a potential candidate for closer under a framed question from Tommy Thrall that went along the lines of, if the Reds don't make a move and you got to use the guys that are in the room, who's the closer going to be? Is it Tony Santillan? Derek Johnson replied, Santillan, Graham Ashcraft, or Connor Phillips. When Connor Phillips is at his best, I see why he's included in that conversation. When he's on fire, he is tough to hit. It was what had us thinking he was going to be an excellent starting pitcher. It didn't quite work out. And there was a reason for that in the minor leagues. If you recall, we had him on this very show. I sat down and did an interview with Connor Phillips a couple years back when he was pitching for Louisville. And what I gained from that interview is his absolute hatred for the automatic balls and strikes system. He absolutely loathes that system. He feels like it squeezes him. He feels like it doesn't let him be the pitcher that he needs to be. He feels like it doesn't let him be who he is. Well, guess what, folks? 2026 brings the ABS system to the big leagues. And I wonder if Connor's going to struggle with this, maybe not even from a legitimate performance standpoint, but the ABS is in his head. And I think in the games that he pitched in Louisville, and if you don't recall, folks, when minor league baseball used this, there were some games that were entirely called by the ABS as Major League Baseball was testing it out. And there were some games called by the home plate umpire. And they had the challenge system. Connor Phillips' performance in the games called strictly by the ABS were terrible. He just could not get it done, and it got him into his own head and resulted in him pitching so bad that he got sent back to Goodyear, to the Goodyear League from AAA in order to get his head screwed back on right. So I'm a little bit worried about how he's going to respond to just the ABS, just knowing that the ABS is an option.
I'm not. I think that he's worked through it. And I think that Arizona was part of it. But also I think that because it's strictly the challenge system, like he talked about, like, explicitly the games in which they were all ABS. It was basically the hard and fast, like laser drawn strikeout box that governed the balls and strikes. Those were the games that he hated the most. That's not what Major League Baseball is using. They're going to use the challenge system, where it is governed by that if you challenge it, but that's only if the batter decides he didn't like that strike call. Now, I will say there's probably going to be a little bit of like scouting report that is done, like, okay, if Phillips is on the mound and you are a little bit leery about the pitch call, then go ahead and challenge it, because there might be a chance that it was just really well framed, or it was a very deceptive slider or something like that, because Connor Phillips has stuff for days and his stuff is very deceptive. And so part of that probably deceives the umpire too. But I think that part of his retraining, and I kind of feel, Steve, just bear with me on this one, because I kind of feel like Arizona was Connor Phillips' Dagobah. He went to Dagobah. He trained. He got his command right. He was in touch with the force, his command. And I really feel as though he has come out stronger and he has come out ready to vanquish the enemy that is Darth ABS.
I can't with you. It is too early in the day for me to, you're going to make me want to drink all day. That's what you're going to, no, listen, the ABS, and it's interesting, even in a broader perspective with the ABS, Jeff, because I'm sure Connor Phillips is not the only one that doesn't like the ABS. I'm sure that he's not the only one that had a problem with it. I'm going to be real interested to see how this whole thing rolls out and how it impacts the game, how it impacts, you mentioned things that I can't wait to see what the impacts are. How does it affect the focus that we've put on catchers and framing? Because that was a whole thing where, like, oh my God, the guy can't frame, don't sign him. Does that even matter now? If we're going to have a challenge system, like, do you really got to be able to frame if the guy can just tap his head and be like, well, nice work there, Tyler, but no, that was a ball. What's going to happen with those kind of things? There are a lot more impacts from the ABS than just, oh, it's going to show the umpires. It's going to fix the umpires. No, it's going to impact where guys focus their practice and their training within their individual games, because, especially at the catcher position where framing was such a focus. That being said, I'm not against the ABS. The thing I feel cheated by the most, Jeff, and I just am so sad, and this probably led to part of why he left the game, but I needed to be able to see an Angel Hernandez game with the ABS in place, because I feel like
how many times would they be like,
I feel like that if they're going to track the record use of ABS in a Major League Baseball game, and you talked about a challenge system where, well, it's only going to be a challenge system. It's not going to be every pitch. An Angel Hernandez game would have been every pitch. And I wish I got to see that.
And to the credit of this plan, in case you've forgotten, the challenge system is only it's only activated by the pitcher, the catcher, or the batter. It cannot be somebody in the dugout. It cannot be somebody in the field. It has to be one of the battery or the guy in the batter's box himself. So it's not as if you're going to have opposing managers up on the rail going, yep, nope, challenge, that one down a strike. Nope,
yeah.
Nope, challenge that one.
It has to be instantaneous. They have to immediately do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, if you've seen, there's different highlights and stuff that I've seen of like minor league games where it's done, and it's almost like the ball is just barely into the mitt and the umpire makes the call and the batter's like, you look at that one. And to their credit, the way that they do it, this isn't a instant replay where they call New York and they wait for New York to give them the ruling. This isn't a thing where they bring out a monitor and they watch it and all this. There's a line
right up on the screen.
It's a very tennis-like line that it's like, as long as it hits it, it's a strike. And I love that that's how they're going to do this. But no, I don't think that this is going to negatively affect Connor Phillips in the way that it did in the minor leagues. And I also think that that's just an evolution to the game that somebody's got to go through. I think that there are different players that go through different things at different points in their career, that you either adapt or you don't. And I think, to his credit, I think he has adapted, and I think we will continue to see that. I begrudge that he is not the favorite to be the closer. He's not the favorite to lead the team in saves, but I think that he will be a super valuable part of this bullpen and could very well push to lead in saves. I don't think at the end of the day he will, but he's going to be a very valuable member of this Reds bullpen this year.
Well, and out of that, we get Derek Johnson's preseason pick for the A group of the bullpen. That's your A group of the bullpen. If they don't make a move, Derek Johnson told you who his A group is. It's Tony Santillan, it's Graham Ashcraft, and it's Connor Phillips. And just a final note on Connor Phillips, given how bad things went for him in Louisville so quickly, after he had so much promise and potential, I am really happy for him to have reinvented himself, embraced the bullpen of it all, and now being included in that group. And it's really the same with Graham Ashcraft, right? Very, very similar journey of a guy that was looked upon as being, he's going to be just a nails starting pitcher that just never could quite turn the corner on it, and is now reinventing himself into the A group of a bullpen. So those two guys, I'm happy to see both of them finding new success out of a scenario where, they didn't quite get it done where we thought they were going to, but they're still around and relevant. And I'm happy to see that for them.
And that leads me to my point that we will discuss ad nauseum on our live show Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And that is, I think that the Reds need to be focusing 90%, if not 100% of their available budget on improving the lineup and allow their in-house options to build out this bullpen. And that's where we will end today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Locked On Reds. Make sure you're subscribed, be an everydayer. Thank you for helping us make Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in the country. And make sure you go check out Sully over on Locked On MLB. He's got your takes for league-wide news and everything going on around. He'll be talking all about, and I forgot that I was even going to get into this with you, another thing we'll talk about on Friday, the demise of the St. Louis Cardinals and the rebuild that they are beginning this offseason. Oh, I can't wait to see their record next year. Gonna be fun. And we'll talk all about
times are here again, baby.
They're here again. Here for the first, I don't know that I've ever thought about the Cardinals rebound. Anyway, we'll talk all about that and why the Reds are going to benefit from the demise of the birds on the bat in St. Louis. That's all coming up on Friday. Until then, you know that Steve and I will be Locked On Reds. And by the way, happy Thanksgiving to everybody. See you on Friday.
Should we bring JD on and just mute him and just make fun of the Cardinals for that whole show? And that sounds like a great Black Friday.
When they paid $20 million for the Red Sox to take Sonny Gray away from them, I was like, oh, it's happening.
Burn it down.